I'm gonna make a podcast that is so charismatic. No one likes a swollen gland. Brusha, brusha, brusha. Din, 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 din.
Oh my god, I'm killing all my houseplants.
Two girls, two podcasts. What? This why we friends.
Ready? Hello and welcome to Uphill From Here.
This is Catherine.
And this is Amy. And we're in the same clothes.
For the more eagle-eyed viewers, because you might not be watching this, you might just be listening. But for those of you who are watching, thank you. We are wearing the same outfits. We're not tramps. We're just recording 2 episodes in one.
Life has changed since we started the podcast. I'm now working and I'm a key worker. So we have to cram in whenever we can as many filming episodes as possible.
We're cramming them in for you.
We're cramming.
We're
Yeah.
jamming them all together. One day, 2 episodes.
Oh.
What is our word of this week, Catherine?
Our word of the week this week is recovery, which was actually a word that was suggested by our guest this week, which I quite like.
Yeah,
I like that we've got a little suggestion.
Yeah, exactly. Love that. So if you have an idea for something you want to discuss and you feel it's important, you want to voice your opinion on it, let us know, because we'd love to be the platform for that. We'd love to hear your thoughts and discuss it.
Amy has said, to anyone who is punishing themselves for still thinking about that thing, recovery is a process of indefinite length. Whether you are recovering after the loss of a loved one, mourning the end of a relationship, or rebuilding after a traumatic event, it is important to remember that there isn't a set date for full recovery. Much like an injury in sport, it takes time to heal, and even years later, when you think that that broken ankle has healed completely, a dull ache may resurface when faced with too much strain or exposure to the cold. A broken heart is just like any broken bone, an intense burst of tears and pain followed by a period of rebuilding strength, of slowly healing where that ache will gradually dull. We must put things in place to make sure that bone isn't at risk of further damage. Bandage ourselves up and allow ourselves to rest. If we thought of our mental health recovery in the same way which we view our physical health, then perhaps we would be more inclined to be more selfish, take our time and allow ourselves a little more patience and a little less skill. Love, Amy, with an aching ankle and slowly healing. Oh, I feel like that came from a place.
It came from somewhere.
Yeah, it did come from somewhere. But I think I would just really kind of hammer home that idea of our society very much doesn't treat mental illness like it treats physical illness, and that's a real problem. And I really like that you've kind of drawn that exact comparison, because it's very true. Like you say, a broken heart is exactly the same as a broken bone. It takes time to heal, and it's a process and it's a journey. I really like that.
It's funny because it's actually pretty much exactly a year since I really badly sprained my ankle, which is so embarrassing. And actually the other day it was just really cold and my ankle still sometimes twinges and gets sore. And it made me think, because I was like, if I've had some kind of emotional trauma in my life, which I have, I'm sure we all have had experience, I don't when that suddenly makes me feel sad one day because I see something that reminds me of it, or I just get sad and think about it. I don't look at my ankle and go, fuck's sake, why are you sore right now? I know it's because I sprained my ankle a year ago, and sometimes that will come up and it'll hurt. So we shouldn't feel angry for oh, why am I still thinking about that situation or that thing or that event that affected me? Because it was a traumatic event. It was a trauma to your emotion and your mental health. So of course sometimes you're gonna struggle. You shouldn't feel guilty for that, because your ankle doesn't feel guilty for hurting. You need to think of it in the same way. It's like with grief. Grief can happen years down the line. And you're like, oh my God, why am I so upset about this thing or this person that I've lost or this thing that's happened? Because grief's a funny thing, and mental health recovery is a funny thing as well. And sometimes you could be doing great for so long, and then go back into a period of grieving like it's just happened again. And it's a journey, and it's not, oh, I should be over this by now, I shouldn't feel sad about this anymore. Who says who says that you can't still be upset about that thing?
Yeah,
it's human, isn't it?
It is, very much so.
Is that a rant?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. Do you think...
I'll go with yes or no questions from this point.
Okay. Do you... So obviously you just kind of said, like, you feel quite passionate about that idea that of, like, people telling you shouldn't. And I think that then kind of begs the question of, at what point in your recovery process is tough love necessary from the people that care for you? Because I know that we've had conversations like that before, and you know, we talk about like wallowing, and like we'll give ourselves time to wallow and then we'll get up and deal with it, because we should treat mental illness and mental health and, you know, that kind of emotional well-being as we do our physical well-being and our physical health. But once a broken bone is healed, it's healed. And we may get those small reminders, but at what point is it necessary for someone to drag you out of that sadness and to say, enough is enough, you cannot keep going on like this? Because obviously there is that thing of when you go on a recovery journey by yourself, it can be a lot harder than when somebody is there with you, or somebody is there helping you, whether that be a therapist, a friend, a family member. So at what point is it appropriate to kind of help and pull somebody out of that?
I always think about the images you see maybe like in films and stuff of like someone doing physiotherapy after they've had like a really serious injury, a life-changing injury. And you'll see scenes of them getting really frustrated. And there's times when they have almost like broken, and maybe the physiotherapist has really pushed them, or they've pushed themselves to like really try and heal and do something that's maybe quite painful. And there's also times when they do just need to admit defeat and go, do you know what, I'm gonna just put my foot up for the day and chill and just do nothing and watch Netflix, and that's gonna be fine. And it's the exact same in like mental healing, where it's like there are times when you do need to challenge yourself, and you should be really proud and acknowledge those moments, but also the moments when you can't bear the ache anymore and you just need to stop for a day. And I mean for a short while, and rest, recuperate. Rest and recuperate. Don't like digress in your progress. But yeah, I think sometimes you do need to recognize and allow yourself a little bit of time. You know yourself better than anyone in most cases. And I think you know when you're like, okay, this is just a moment, I'm having a little relapse of emotion. Let yourself have that. But then you pick yourself back up, because it reminds you what you got through in the first place. It's just knowing the difference between the two.
Yeah, definitely. It's about identifying, isn't it? I remember, I know you listened to this podcast, but Happy Place by Fern Cotton, one of the first episodes is with Dawn French. And I've listened to that episode so many times because it is so helpful. Like, it's one of those ones that when I'm having a bad day, I listen to it because it makes me feel better. And Dawn mentions this thing about where she says, you know, sometimes you do need to just take a step back and rest and just forget about the world outside and have a bit of time to yourself. And she's like, but only you know when you have fully retreated, when you have fully put yourself away from people because you can't bear to deal with what's going on outside of that. And like you say, it's about being able to identify in your recovery journey, okay, now I've retreated. This is no longer self-care. This is no longer giving myself a rest. This is full retreat from any sort of help. And it's about being able to identify that.
You've got to prioritize your progress and your healing, your recovery. That's got to be at the forefront. So whatever is best in that moment, and that might be taking a break, and that might be through, but it's never just completely shutting off and stopping progress or going backwards. That's never going to help progress. Sometimes stopping and resting will, sometimes pushing through will, but not doing anything and refusing to move forward isn't the best thing for your progress.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, shall we do yours?
It's very short again.
Love it. Less for me to fuck up. Catherine's written, to anyone looking to recover or anyone on the journey to recovery, this may feel like the longest road you've ever been on. Whatever you're recovering from, keep walking that road. It's always worth it. You've overcome the biggest hurdle. You've started the journey. You are strong and you can reach your end goal. Keep going. Love, Kat. Yeah. That's nice. Sometimes you just need to hear that. Like, you can do it. Keep going. Push through. Like we were saying, the idea of pushing through the pain to like move forward, keep moving. I love that. I know you said it's like a journey, but do like a journey to recovery. So recovery is like the goal. So like, how do you know when you're recovered from something? Like, what's the end goal?
I think it depends what you're recovering from. You know, when we talk about kind of relationships and breakups and things like that, you know when you've hit that point. And you kind of have that sense. You have that day where you turn around and you go, oh, I don't care anymore. I stopped caring. Or you have that day where you realise that you haven't thought about that person. And you then realise that you are probably closer to recovery than you thought you were. And I refuse to say that you've recovered when you get into a relationship with somebody else, because I don't think that you should get into a relationship with somebody else to prove that you've recovered.
No,
I don't think that's healthy, personally. I'm going to put that out there. So I think it's about how you feel, that sensation within you. It's that realization. But I think when you think about, obviously, mental illness, we talk about a recovery journey, we talk about our road to recovery. But I think the thing that we do have to remember is that if you suffer with a mental health condition, you might always suffer with that mental health condition. Some people's are brought on by stress and then they disappear and then they never experience it again. But some people have them for a lifetime, and you're not necessarily recovered from them, but you're not necessarily on a medical basis recovered from them. They don't write you off, that book of, oh, you no longer have this condition. But you yourself know that you have recovered from that thing you were struggling with. Or that thing that you were struggling with has kind of receded a little bit. I always remember, I don't tend to talk about my own personal mental health a lot. I remember when I was quite poorly with it, thinking to myself, will I ever not feel like this? Is this always how I will feel? I don't remember feeling any different, because this is how I have felt for so long. And it wasn't until I stopped feeling that way that I realised, oh my God, I've done it. I've got out of it.
Yeah.
And you take it for granted because it just tends to happen by itself. And then
I think like you're saying, like, you don't think you can ever get out of it until you do.
Yeah. And then you go, oh.
But you've done that. You've done that by staying, and you've done that by surviving and pushing through and just getting through each day of that. You've done that. That's a success for you. You should be really proud of that.
Yeah. And it's a massive thing. And it's the same with grief. You will never fully recover from grief, but you will know when you have made peace with it. You will have that feeling in your heart of, I have made peace with this. And you may never make peace with it. It might always make you sad. And that's okay. But I think I stand by the fact that I say you've done the most difficult part, which is starting the journey. Because it takes a lot to start. It takes a lot to go, I am not okay. This is not where I want to be. It takes a lot to admit that, and to be able to admit that and move forward is really important and really impressive.
Absolutely. Like you say, that's the first step, like acknowledging it. Because you can't recover if you don't think there's an injury. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you think the road to recovery is one that you walk alone, or you have to walk alone to get there?
No.
No?
No.
Because very
Not at
personal.
all.
It's your trauma, your thing that you're recovering from.
It is. But I've never done it alone.
Mm.
You know, it's not necessarily somebody standing and walking the whole way with you, but it's the person helping you get past the next crossroad.
Mm.
Oh, I'm loving this analogy. And like deciding which junction to take and all those kinds of things. That person that pushes you over that, whether that be a therapist or a family member or a friend. You know, when I think about when I was kind of recovering from a breakup that I had and a broken heart, I didn't do that by myself. I did that with other people. And it does take yourself to make the decision. It does take you, no matter how much people tell you they're a dickhead, they're this, they're that, then you're not worth it. You know, they're not worth your time. They're not worth this. And, you know, you're worth more than that. And it doesn't matter until you believe it. It doesn't matter. But those people there supporting you and lifting you up push you that little bit closer to realizing it for yourself. That therapist is there to help you work it out. They're not there to tell you the answers. They're not there to tell you what to do. They're there to help you work it out. Therefore, they are with you through those steps that you're taking on your journey. But you might only see them every now and again. You know, you're on your journey every single day. They're with you on your journey for 2 hours a week.
That's true. I like that.
But you're never on your own, I don't think. Very philosophical, isn't it? Crikey.
Are we ready to move on to our guest?
I think we are.
Okay. Yeah, so Catherine, who's our guest this week?
Our guest this week is the lovely Rob. We went to university with Rob. Rob is an avid listener of our podcast. Rob studied music at uni and we got on with him very well, and he has a lot of opinions and he's very kind of involved in our discussions that we have a lot on this podcast. So we thought it's about bloody time we had him as a guest. So here he is to talk about his perspective on recovery.
Dear Kat and Amy, recovery is a very, very long and confusing word. I mean, it doesn't seem that long, but the implications and the process behind recovery can be long. Recovery means a lot of things to a lot of different people, but to me, it means the process of making sure you are okay. The step by step, the little tiny baby steps, the little small things in a day that you choose to do to make yourself, to make your life a little bit better. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be life-changing or game-changing. As long as you are on your own path to recovery, that's all that matters. And it's not set in stone. There's no time limit. You take as much time as you want because you will recover in the end.
Oh, that was really lovely. I'm really hope that people hear that and they feel like inspired. Because I feel really great. Oh, it's like a virtual hug.
Yeah, that's such a gorgeous way of thinking about recovery. It's not the big things. It's not a massive thing. Recovery is about making sure that you're okay.
And like checking in. Like, I think sometimes when you think of this massive journey and all these big steps, and when you're first starting out, like you say, you can't imagine ever feeling better. You can't imagine recovering because recovery seems like such a tough journey.
Yeah.
But like you said, it's making sure you're prioritizing that journey by taking those tiny little steps every day and checking in with yourself and being like, yeah, I am slowly recovering.
Yeah.
Not there just yet, but I'm doing these little things that are going to help me get there eventually, whenever that is.
And, you know, even if the thing to make you feel okay that day is to get in the shower, to cook a meal, to make a cup of tea, to get out of bed, they're all small steps to recovery. And I really like that Rob kind of brought that home, that all of those things are steps towards recovery, not the big massive gestures and, you know, going traveling around the world and finding yourself and all that kind of thing. It's the tiny things that you do every day to just make sure that you're okay.
And I think it's important to like bringing it back to what we first talked about is like those little setbacks and those moments of weakness and those moments where you don't feel like you're recovering and you feel like you're struggling again. They're also part of your recovery journey.
Yeah.
Because the more you have to face that trauma and that pain and revisit that, the more like
the more you learn.
Yeah, the more you become stronger towards it and that you can cope with it more. And you're acknowledging that that is part of who you are. And yeah, that did hurt. But being able to live with that and move forward, that's a huge part of your journey too. So you shouldn't punish yourself for being like, oh, I've not made any progress because I'm still feeling this way or still dwelling on this thing or this is still really, I'm struggling with this. That's part of your journey too. You know, it's not all steps.
They also help you get to know that trauma better. They help you get to know what it is that bothers you so much about that thing. It helps you become more self-aware the next time.
Exactly.
The next time you have that setback, you're more aware of your triggers and the things that upset you and why it hurts you, like the reasons behind that. And, you realise more about where that comes from.
And like I say, with like almost like wearing a support bandage, you know how to better protect yourself from a trauma and injury again the next time by the situations you put yourself in and the people you spend your time with and how you view yourself and how you live your life. And I think that's about moving forward, is recognizing how you can protect yourself from that happening again.
Definitely.
Oh, feels so lovely and warm.
Me too.
Well, that rounds off another episode of Uphill From Here. Thank you so much for voicing your lovely opinion on recovery and suggesting the topic. We love hearing new ideas and having new guests on and growing our community. So if you do want to get in touch, Catherine, how can they do that?
Please get in touch via our Instagram. It's at Uphill From Here Podcast, or our email uphillfromherepodcast@gmail.com. We always love to hear from you. And, like Rob, please feel free to suggest things you'd like to talk about. We're pretty much open to talk about most things. So, and we will probably find an answer for any word of the week you want to throw at us. So please feel free to suggest things if you have an idea or something you would like to voice on our podcast. This is your platform as much as it is ours.
Absolutely. We love you. Thank you so much for watching and listening, and we'll see you very soon.
See you soon. Bye.
Two girls, one podcast should absolutely not ever be our tagline.
Move on. It absolutely should.